Welcome to Deeply Disturbing Things,
the podcast.
I'm Macy.
And I'm Naomi.
And we're two anxious counselors with Sarah. Sarah's over there too.
Sarah, the hype girl, and also a counselor.
Three anxious counselors.
We have not actually asked her if she's anxious.
So anxious.
Oh, okay.
I think she claimed that actually early on. She did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anxious person in general.
Who would like to talk about deeply disturbing things? Welcome.
Our dear Abby Normals.
If you want to see something really fun, become a Patreon. And I'm doing the plug now because
it's only $1.
It's only $1, and something great happened right before this that you get to see.
It's all real.
Real life.
I get to go first, which is great. Mirror, mirror on the wall.
Who's the fairest of them all?
Who's the fairest one of all?
It's Sarah. I always say Sarah's the prettiest.
No, I'm pretty too.
Not just in the world, not here. Those rules don't apply.
I have very high self-esteem. I think I'm fucking cute.
You are.
Okay. The Queen in Snow White, right? We've all seen Snow White, the Disney cartoon. Asked the floating head trapped in the mirror this question.
Yes.
For years, he answers that it is her, the Queen. But then one day, he says there's a new, fairer one in the kingdom, and it is Snow White. And we know what that leads to.
Right.
The poison apple, all that.
Thanks to the refresh. It's been a little while.
Tries to kill Snow White. There's dwarves. So I'm going to talk to you about mirrors tonight.
Ooh.
Creepy.
Yeah, that's a good... I've known some creepy mirrors in my time.
Tell me about your creepy mirrors.
Well, the one that I think of right away, remember the haunted house I did live in with the kids' rooms that were closed off? There was a medicine cabinet that was probably from the 20s and had the mirror that's kind of like worn out, I guess I would say. Like it's old looking, and it was creepy AF.
It's creepy. Did you ever see things in it? Besides,
I didn't.
What should be reflected?
No, but the drawer under the mirror is what had the envelopes with the kids' hair braided in it. So generally creeped out, right?
A little, like I always like to do a little background. A mirror or looking glass.
Did you need these?
Not right now. I'm actually good.
Okay.
I wasn't staring at my computer all day because I was dealing with a crisis. So the more I stare at my computer, the more my vision degrades. Like after the weekend, if I don't look at my computer, like I'm fine.
That's good.
And then by the end of Monday, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I look like a mole. So a mirror is an object that reflects an image. Natural mirrors have existed since the beginning of time, such as the surface of water. But people have been manufacturing materials for thousands of years out of materials like stone, metals, and glass. And now our mirrors are backed with metals like silver or aluminum because they're highly reflective. And they're applied as a thin coating on the back of glass because it's naturally smooth and a very hard surface.
I don't think I've ever known how a mirror is made until this moment. And I went, oh.
This podcast is educational AF.
If you knew that before this moment, snaps to you, because 34 years, never heard that once.
We use mirrors commonly for inspecting oneself, such as during personal grooming. Hence the old-fashioned name looking glass.
We're looking at ourselves.
And that use dates from prehistory and overlaps with uses for decoration and architecture. So mirrors sometimes are used just, to maybe bring more light into the room or reflect certain elements.
Look bigger.
Or in architecture, it is a design element. Mirrors are also used to view other items that are not directly visible because of its obstructions.
Ooh, like up in the corners and buildings,
so
they can see.
So you don't crash into somebody. And so this can include rear view mirrors in vehicles, which act as a parent's eyes in the back of the head.
Slowly being replaced by my backup camera, but yes.
No, to look at your kids in the back seat.
Oh, see, I don't have that, so that makes sense.
Oh yeah, with the baby on the mirror on the back of the seat.
Well, you know, if you have the kids back there and
Oh, so
you're
you can see
driving,
them.
so you can look and be like, what are they doing back there? Or have a conversation.
Mhm.
So we have periscopes that can
Mm.
see things that are like over a wall or around a corner. Or we have those curved mirrors that can see things that are around a corner.
That's how like a lot of magicians and stuff do tricky things. Mirror magic.
Smoke and mirrors, as they say.
What?
Copperfield.
See? Smoke and mirrors.
Smoke and mirrors.
Ooh.
Distraction, deception, illusion.
Pin that as a possible title.
And then there are infinity mirrors, which show us a reflection that never ends. Have you ever seen those?
Ooh.
Where it just repeats over and over.
Happens on Zoom calls too. If you try to share a window that's already showing the video, it just does this kind of just
I don't
tripping
like
over
seeing
it.
a whole bunch of me's at once.
Yeah, and it looks like it goes on forever in the
Like
background.
Fun house mirrors.
Mhm.
Yes, there's
Right.
funhouse mirrors.
That's terrifying.
It's called the Hall of Mirrors. And they purposely distort our image and make it unrecognizable.
Oh, like some of them make you like or super.
Yeah, they're wavy. They may make us real tall and yeah, or like or both.
And then you see a standard one, and you're like, "Am I distorted right now?"
Well, I'm going to talk about that. I will be talking about that because what we see in a mirror is always an illusion.
Valid point. I like the chuckles as she drinks wine.
This wine
Just you wait.
is not as good as our usual.
I was about to say I'm not a fan of the taste. I didn't want to say that after what happened earlier. Become a patron.
Yeah, if you want to know more,
it's only $1.
It's a lot harder.
It's a lot harder of a hit, and it's kind of dry without flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other one is much more flavorful, but they were all out at the Rosars, where I usually go. So I looked into a person in psychoanalytic history that I'd never heard of before, a French individual called Jacques Lacan. And he created stages of development theory, which I was like, I never got taught that, probably because it's French. Not French. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, why wasn't I taught this? But it's really cool. He came up with these different stages, and one is called the mirror stage.
Ooh. Is this yeah, as I say, isn't that like with young kids, there's like a mirror stage of development when they're little?
Yeah. But I don't remember his name.
No, I'm wondering if
it's not like one of those names that are like pounded into our brain. Like Erickson.
Well, I'm wondering if it got stolen by someone else, so that got put into their theory. Like if he was like the originator of it and somebody stole it.
Well, when I looked into him, he seemed pretty well known. I mean, he had a full Wikipedia page and everything.
But if someone was like, "That sounds good," I'm going to put that mine.
Why don't I have a Wikipedia page? I want
We
one.
should.
I will know I've arrived.
Have a Wikipedia. Anyone can make a Wikipedia page, though. Why don't we have it?
When I have a Wikipedia page, I will know I have arrived. Where
when
I've arrived, I'm not sure.
When we have time to make our own. I don't know how that works.
I just know individuals usually make them. So the mirror stage is the moment a child recognizes themselves in the mirror, and it's the critical beginning of realizing that they are an individual and not one with all that's existing around them.
Because they see themselves move. It's the identifying itself.
Yeah, it's like that is me. So Lacan
starts going downhill.
It's all downhill from there. Lacan demonstrated that our identification with our reflection relies on misrecognition. So when we look in the mirror, we see a pleasing image of wholeness and project it onto a mental fantasy, which is our ego ideal. So his work as a psychoanalyst was focused on helping people get in touch with their authentic selves that the ego represses.
Right. I was gonna say this sounds very similar to like Jung and like parts.
I love him.
So like we are made up of different parts, and there's like the goal of integrating basically, right? So he's kind of that psychoanalytic piece.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to learn more about his stuff because he's really touted as like the most influential person in the
Why aren't
history
we
of
touted?
psychology since Freud.
Touted. Can that be on our Wikipedia page?
We're
touted.
touted out.
That'll be the first line. Deeply disturbing things. Touted out.
Our cameras on our phones mimic the reverse image we recognize from mirrors. So this is not reversing.
No.
This is actual. So it looks a little weird to us because it's not mirroring.
It's not pleasing to our brain.
It's not showing us what we are used to seeing in the mirror. And so when we see images that aren't purposely flipped to look like our mirror image,
right,
then it looks weird to us.
You've said that a lot when we've recorded, and you're like, wait, oh, I got confused. Like it doesn't feel appealing to the brain.
Because, you know, you might see things as uneven to you, or like,
because our faces are not,
we're not symmetrical, but we're used to seeing it in a certain way. So when it's flipped, it may be very disconcerting to us and unpleasing.
Yeah.
Because we get very used to, oh, this is me, and it's like, who is
and
that?
see, when we see other people, it's symmetrical, right? Like there's no,
or it's
not.
Nobody's symmetrical.
Well,
but
right.
The image that we see when it's not designed to match our view in the mirror is actually what everybody else sees when they see us. That's what's the real mind fuck here.
Okay,
I know. I'm
say that. I know that's where my brain is tripping. So say it one more time slowly.
So I'm looking at you. The image I see of you is not the image you see in the mirror every day.
Oh, so it'd be the reversal.
Flipped.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
So sometimes I have to tell myself that when I see my actual image, it's like, well, this is how everybody else sees me all the time. Like it looks weird to me, but that's what everyone else sees, and I have to kind of like just make peace with it.
Which flip is better then? You gotta figure out.
Well, but probably the one you're used to seeing all the time feels more comforting. So in the mirror, you look at yourself more than you would see someone else's view of you.
And all our phones and technology flips it automatically for us so that we feel better.
Why is this one seeing it the other way? Or
the
way that people
don't know. I think you have to tell it to flip to mirror image. Yeah, so you can
I'm curious. I'm gonna go into the settings
yourself
right now.
You can run it through an app that'll make it look like how everyone else sees you and see what you think about it.
Okay, here's the mirror my video button. Ready, guys? Here we go. Oh my gosh.
Wait, can I see that?
Yeah, come here. Come here. Okay, so this is
so this is what I see in the mirror all the time.
Right.
So this is like the normal view.
And it does yeah, because you're right there, bump.
But when it's the other way, it's
and that is not right.
Recognized.
So this is right.
So to me, I look more attractive than the other view because I'm used to that view. Now I'm like,
oh yeah, I look.
Why do I?
Weird on
like why does my eye look like that? And
okay, yeah,
same.
I look weird on that side.
Why am I coughing on this side?
Because it's so disconcerting.
My body is revolting.
Have you had the experience in the dressing room where it's like a three-way or?
I have anxiety attacks in those places. It's too small, too much of my body so close.
The different angles, right?
I'm like, oh,
I don't so that's that from there.
So that's a perfect example of this. We're used to seeing the head-on view,
right?
Or we can purposely choose to like angle it and do whatever. But those views show us like how we actually look to other people, and it's very disconcerting because we're not in control of it. Like that, really? That's why the mirrors are
you see like the back of your
but it's real. Yes, exactly.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't even do the back of my hair today.
So that really folds into Lacan's theory that what we see in a mirror is always an illusion because our ego is creating this image of wholeness that's our ideal self.
Right.
So when we look in the mirror, we're putting it together like, oh, this is me.
It's that little confirmation bias in our brain happening. When we see it, we go, yep, that's us. Yep, that's me. Yep, that's me. Nope, that's not me. I don't like this picture. Take it down off of social media now.
Yeah. So for me, it's helped to just remind myself, well, this is what I look like. Everyone else. Like it looks weird to me, but that's
But you look,
what it
to
is.
me, you look normal. Like I would
I
not
know
say that
because-
you look any different.
because you're not next to me all the time looking at me in the mirror.
Not usually.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to you, this is the
This is-
Naomi
but
norm.
You look normal here. I feel like I look off.
Right, because
Mhm.
that's not your mirror.
I hate
view.
it. I actually really want to be sitting in that spot for some, like my brain wants me over there.
You could next time we do this, just set it up to do mirror view,
I
and then
mean,
we
I
would
might.
all feel better.
Should I just flip it now and we do mirror view for the
Will it
rest?
screw it up?
No,
This
we just
way-
did it. We just did it. We
Okay.
can flip it back.
Moving on.
Here we go.
See, my phone up there, the other one that we do for our teaser is mirror view.
All right, let's all feel good
Oh
about
my
ourselves.
god, I'm so much prettier all of a sudden. I just got a glow up.
I feel good in my heart.
Don't you feel
space.
better?
Yeah,
And it's all a fucking illusion.
it's just a lie. Just a lie. The same
I'm
thing.
so glad you're into this topic because I was getting into it too. But it's better to have it in context.
I could explain this. I wouldn't. Been able to
Yeah, that would have been a
explain.
line I had to read over.
Good thing I went first.
Yeah.
Later I'd be like, it all made sense before I swear.
That's why I made actual paper notes today to keep me on track because I knew I was going second.
Okay.
There were some fun details I needed to make sure I had.
So I'm gonna switch gears a little bit, but still on the mirror theme. If you break a mirror, you'll have 7 years bad luck. Have you ever
Mm.
broke a mirror?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Did you have
Yeah.
7 years
Multiple.
bad luck?
I'm living it.
Still
Because
in the
like,
7 years.
it's all because of you. I don't know.
And this superstition.
Probably that, and I did take a rock from Hawaii Beach once, and so that's instant.
Did you not watch the
I
Brady
didn't watch-
Bunch?
No, I was warned.
When
in
Greg
it.
Brady almost died
I know.
surfing.
I did watch that. I've seen it. I did it anyway.
You did not learn the lesson.
No, I'm being punished harshly.
This-
every day.
So 7 years bad luck. This you can send it back. They have a
I-
whole system for
I-
returning things because this happens to tourists all the time.
Hmm.
And I know this because I have a friend that took something too and had bad luck
That's a good idea.
and sent it back.
That would be good. I think I'm at
There's an
that.
address you can send shit to.
I'm like past that 7
Oh my
or
God, future topic.
I'm coming up to that 7 year point too, of that being
I think
that long
future
ago.
topic.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Dead to Me. If have you seen that
Yes,
on
I love
Netflix,
it.
they talk
I'm not
about
at the end of the last one.
no. This is
Okay.
newer.
I'm
This
on,
is
like,
newer.
the third
It's when she's
one.
talking
I'm almost to the end of the
when
last
she's talking to her ex and she's like, wait, but did you take something from the beach when we were there? And he denied it and then he ended up admitting it and it's
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
It's all
I love
it all
that
makes sense
series.
now.
It all makes sense.
So the 7 years bad luck thing comes from ancient Roman times because the Romans believed that the body renewed itself every 7 years. So after 7 years, you would have a fresh start.
Great.
Oh.
And
But like so 7 years from birth, like every 7 years.
yeah, so if you broke a
Can you do
mirror,
that math. How do I do that? Wait.
Yeah, I was just like
7,
14.
9, 10.
it was
12, 13,
considered
14,
disrespectful
28.
to the gods. So
Oh my god. May will be my
The
7
curse
year.
will be lifted.
The curse will be lifted.
okay, super.
I feel like it's already.
Where's yours? Where's yours at? Where are
My
you in
what?
your cycle? Your
I-
7 year cycle.
I don't
Actually,
do that
You
math
count
right now.
on fingers.
I still have-
2 more?
Fingers.
2 more years. You're in.
So I'm at seven.
Okay.
On to the end of the 7.
All right. Cool.
Mirrors are
It's good
thought
to know.
to reflect our souls. So if there's no reflection, beings are thought to not have souls, vampires, etc., etc.
Right.
There are lots of famous mirrors. So there's the Looking Glass in
Mhm.
Snow White with the headless dude. But there's also the mirror of Erised in Harry Potter. Do you remember that?
Right. In this hidden room.
Where you would see your deepest
Oh,
desire,
And he saw his family.
and people would get it
like
addicted to it,
Right.
And-
Too good.
waste their lives away just staring into the mirror, and
Now I feel like I'm over focused. I keep looking at this more than normal.
well, don't look at it.
It's freaking me out. You did this.
Should we shroud
You
it?
made this
We can
happen.
shroud it.
I need blinders like a horse.
I'm really good at ignoring things.
I haven't had enough wine.
I can ignore, just like a whole bunch of chaos happening right here. I could just be like, my happy place.
Mm-hmm.
Not
I
good
do
at
when I
that.
teach preschool. I'm just like,
I know. Mm-mm. I don't have that grace.
God,
Speaking
what
of
is
grace,
happening?
no, that's important. Hold
Why
on.
am I
Here.
just? I am head to toe
Quickly.
covered with wine now.
Quickly.
Head
Don't let it
to
set.
toe.
No, you need to dab. Why are you wiping? Dab. Have you not done this a million
There,
times?
I dabbed.
She needs to do that. She's
No, it's fine.
no. This is
Please.
a great sweater.
It
has
fine.
fox. It's not gonna be fine. It's gonna set.
I will be foxy with or without the fox sweater.
You can see it on the
I do
camera.
not rely on a fox sweater to
To make you
define my
foxy?
foxiness. It's fine. It's like fox tracks in the snow.
I actually have a sweater that I can't tell.
Quiet coyote.
There's roses and stuff on it, and I can't tell if
Like a
one
fox,
of the parts
excuse
of a
me?
rose or if I stained it at some point. I can't tell.
I had a
fully.
tie-dye sweatshirt like that actually was wine, and I'm sure nobody else would have been able to
But
see
you
it but
knew.
me, but I knew.
Just like
and I had to
you
get
mentioned
rid
like
of
you
it.
hyper focus on it.
Yeah, because I know.
Like in a mirror, we know.
Let's
We look
talk
at our
about
faces all the
feng
time.
shui.
We'll bring it all right back.
Feng
We see
shui,
it all.
the design philosophy of my people. So according to feng shui, one may want to avoid bringing vintage or secondhand mirrors into their house because they may have energy from the previous
I have
owners.
my basement that I've had for like 5 years that I did get from. I'm throwing it up.
I've heard that about just objects in general, but
Mhm.
mirrors, would really draw in a lot.
Yeah, I do a lot of thrift shopping, and once I got a jacket, and it was immediately everything was terrible. I threw it away.
I think I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah.
Because you were wearing it and you're like, I can't wear this, and like you freaked out.
Because everything was terrible wearing that jacket, and I threw it away, and then it stopped.
Like energy attaches.
Yeah.
I don't. That mirror, I've never found a room that it looked good in, and it's like nice. Like it has like a wood border. It hangs. It's really pretty shape, and I don't like how it looks in any room. Like it
Because
just
it's probably
doesn't.
bad energy.
And it makes my face look weird.
So you may want to have mirrors reflecting your bed, various locations for sex. But according to feng shui, you don't want a mirror. Well, you don't want it reflecting you while you're sleeping. So you can cover it with a cloth at night. I have a mirror in my room, but it does not reflect my bed.
Same, mine's like tilted this way. But that's, you have your cameras in your room, you can do it that way.
So
ceiling mirrors too is a no-no.
That's like an 80s.
Well, you would have to cover it.
Early 90s.
I mean, if you don't want it reflect, if you believe that having it reflect you while you're sleeping is bad,
do you have a mirror on your ceiling?
No.
That's so hardcore, Sarah.
Yeah.
Wow.
In
Okay.
every situation. So
I've been in every situation.
I am really intentional, because I am superstitious and believe in feng shui. I'm really intentional in what my mirrors reflect. So I never have my mirrors reflecting anything messy, and only positive things, because that's what I want to enhance. Let's talk about the myth of Narcissus. So the myth of Narcissus is the basis of actually a mental health diagnosis.
Yes.
Narcissistic personality disorder. So this is based on an old myth, and it's a cautionary tale of self-obsession.
And it's a Greek myth, right? Because I think I listened to the book Mythos. I think that was what it was, and they talked about this one.
So Narcissus stares at his reflection in the water, while Echo, who is in love with Narcissus and is being rejected, is distressed. So it's said that if he never looked at himself, he would live to old age. So he was so beautiful, Narcissus, and he gained many female admirers, entranced by his beauty. Probably male admirers as well. But he rejected them all. So Echo was so upset by the rejection that she withdrew from the world and wasted away.
Mm-hmm.
All that was left of her was a whisper,
An echo,
of her former self.
I remember that part. 'Cause she like went away into, I think it was like she went away into caves or something, and like
Echo.
into an echo. Yeah.
So this echo, this whisper, was heard by the goddess Nemesis, who in response exacted some revenge and made Narcissus fall in love with his own reflection, which he stared at until he died.
That's also what I'm living right now. Not me personally, but someone harassing me for sure.
A narcissus flower grew upon the spot.
What is a narcissus flower?
It's like a daffodil.
I love that you looked it up.
I did.
I'm
nothing
too.
but thorough.
Yes.
So in my religion, Judaism, we have a practice that when a close relatives die, we sit Shiva. And part of this practice is you cover all the mirrors in the home for 8 days.
Oh.
And this is because there's 2 reasons. So the mainstream reason is because you're not supposed to be concerned with your appearance. You're supposed to be just deeply invested in the mourning process and not adorn yourself. But also there's superstition. There's like regular Judaism, and then there's like mysticism Judaism. Right. So in the superstition is that until the person is buried, their soul could get trapped in an uncovered mirror.
No.
So we want to keep them covered so that their soul can not
just imagine like
trapped.
200 years from now, someone takes a sheet off of a mirror and I'm sitting there like, sorry, my soul got super stuck.
You're going to love this one. There is a phenomenon that has been well researched. Phenomenon.
Muppets.
Yeah. I love the Muppets. It's called the strange face illusion. And this is when our visual experiences are constructed in our mind and they don't directly represent what we see.
Oh my gosh, is that like the hand illusion we did?
This is totally different.
Cool. Same difference though.
Differently different.
If your brain sees something, that's not there.
But this is
different.
This is different.
Differently different.
Completely
Research
wrong.
shows that when you gaze at your own face in the mirror for just a few minutes in dim lights, you will see the apparition of strange faces. Okay. This is highly researched. I saw so many research articles supporting this.
Can we do this? What happens when I sit and look at Sarah's face for a few minutes straight?
Well, that was the build off of this. So first they did staring in the mirror, and then research branched off and did staring at others. I didn't really look into that too much, but that is a thing.
Staring at you, Sarah.
Observers see distortions of their own faces, but they also see hallucinations like monsters, archetypal faces of relatives and deceased people and animals. After as little as 1 minute, people would begin to experience strange face apparitions.
Just imagine if drugs were involved. You think it's crazy.
Well, that's why in high school, I smoked weed 24/7.
It makes me
cannot
so paranoid. I
smoke
can't
weed now at all. No, I cannot
ever.
And if I looked in a mirror, I mean, people would find me just like staring at, like I'd probably be in there 3 hours. I have to break down the bathroom door.
Me too. Or I'd be like in a circle of people talking, and then all of a sudden realize they were talking to me for the last 2 minutes, and then I'd have a panic attack.
I get psychosis with marijuana.
I could.
It's like the THC.
The last time I smoked weed, which was peer pressured, it was many years ago. And it was just like, I just had to make toast and go sit by myself. That was what I had to do.
I had a lot of
and then my toast was very dry and loud when I was eating it.
Very crunchy.
Very loud.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
remember like sitting outside and being like, one day I'm gonna be dead. One day I won't be able to think. Like they just have these moments of like
I think too much
panic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like scary stuff.
Yeah, like think about not existence. Like who wants to dwell on that for an hour or more?
It's just such a flip for me because for many years in my life, it just gave me so many benefits.
Yeah, so many
and
people
saved
have
me.
it, like, or have a good experience, and I wanted that.
But I
never
think,
had that.
I think it was because like
I'm an anxious.
I
person.
stopped
Doesn't work.
doing it, and also when I was a teenager, I was not anxious at all.
Oh, that might make sense.
Like I became anxious later in life,
I was anxious.
and I
in
think
high
it all kind of coordinated.
school. Yeah.
So, in one study conducted by Dr. Caputo of the University of Urbino, wherever that is, participants were asked to stare into a mirror in dim lighting for 10 minutes. Results demonstrated that 66% of participants experienced huge deformations of their own face. So, just like what we experienced looking at our real view.
What's my face being so weird?
28% saw an unknown person and 48% saw fantastical and monstrous beings.
I'd probably see monsters, I'm guessing. I do that a lot with so when at nighttime, when like the windows are open and it's dark outside and you can kind of see your reflection and it
But you
freaks
can't
you
see
out. Right. But and you see your own reflection and it's kind of scary and you close it. Like, yeah, I think that definitely relates.
So I'm gonna end with a riddle.
Ooh, oh my gosh, I'm gonna begin with a rhyme.
Oh, how cute.
Riddles and rhymes.
Oh my God.
Rhymes and riddles. This is a therapist riddle.
Oh.
It's gonna be on point.
Which mirror can show us the soul?
The other.
Yes! Each
I didn't know
other.
That
was so good.
That was a thought that I wanted to bring up.
Each other.
Oh, you've been sitting on this. Can you say your thing?
I feel like you
have
see
you been
parts
sitting on?
of
I've been
yourself
watching you sit on it.
during therapy or
Mhm.
even just in relationships. You end up
Mhm.
seeing parts of yourself, either things that you like.
Oh,
things
right.
that
Like
you-
projection.
Projection, exactly.
Right. Interesting.
I don't like it when people say things about me that I don't feel are accurate. I'm like, is that what you see?
Go fuck right off.
Just like, no.
Because
But
they're
that's-
messing up your
But that's the epitome of when someone
My ideal ego image.
But like
Yeah.
in counseling, if you push a client too fast, like, oh, I know the answer, which you might, but if they're not there yet, like they're not going to go there because that's not what they see. So you have to like pump the brakes and let them get there if they do.
Yeah, but outside of therapy, if somebody says something about me that I don't think is accurate, I think they're just wrong.
Well, they are. It's
And they're
not
poor judges of
it's
character.
not true until it's true to yourself. So even in therapy, like you may say that like I need to do this thing, but if it's not my reality now, it's not true.
But have you ever been talking to someone in therapy and then thinking like, oh, I need to, it's almost like I should be saying this to myself.
I usually have those like, oh, yep, there's one.
Once in a while.
There's the thing that I could
I'll
apply.
hear myself like, oh, I should be hearing this and saying it to the other person. But
So you're
Well,
therapizing yourself.
I do that. I mean, I think
transference.
It's not double dipping.
transference. It is double dipping. It's like,
Did you
Do you
bill
bill
for that
yourself?
session?
Maybe.
do you need to bill your own insurance company? Probably. I
Well, that's
agree.
mirrors.
That's great. I like
Cool.
mirrors. Okay,
Should we do the experiment though, where we stare in the mirror? I'm scared.
maybe
That could be our post one for patrons
for
only.
our Patreon.
Pay $1, you can
Just a
see it.
dollar make you holler in the mirror.
Hmm.
I didn't say more than that.
Nobody gets scared.
Well, it is not a wow. I have a can of wine. I've had a can of wine. It's not a what's the social media
I don't know what you're
where
talking
people
about.
would say pay $1 make you holler.
OnlyFans?
Thank you.
Oh.
It's not an OnlyFans. It's a Patreon. Okay. All right. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. I've had wine. That's my preface. I'm
Is that a
also
disclaimer?
I'm gonna start with the thing.
Whatever.
I have to get this in my head. You know the song the ta ta ra ra boom die ta ra ra boom die. That's the rhythm I have to remember while I do this because this was
It's like a rapey song.
this was
It's
the
a
song.
rapey kid song.
A lot of kids' nursing rooms are.
So Ta Ra Ra Boom Die was like a huge song that
Are you
like
talking
many
about the
things
rapey kid song?
so many songs got placed over that tune.
But is that what we're talking about?
No.
Oh, okay.
I have to remember this while I read this out loud.
Yeah, because
Ready?
I took
way over here. Okay, are you ready?
I grew up in the
You'll be excited. It's
different culture.
Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. And when she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. Okay.
I know the story.
In reality, Lizzie Borden gave her mom 18 or 19 blows to the head with
It doesn't
a
sound
hatchet.
good though.
Her father 11. Okay, the second verse less known is Andrew Borden now is dead. Lizzie hit him on the head. Up in heaven he will sing. On the gallows she will swing.
Who's Andrew? Is that the dad?
Yeah.
Mm.
So I'm going to talk about Lizzie Borden. So an infamous female who has been known for
demonized
for murdering. And this is what I really loved about diving this topic is there's so many ins and outs that are going to make us question everything.
I've questioned everything from the beginning.
Right.
I don't think it's an open and closed thing.
Well, it's not. I'm going to start by saying that she was acquitted. And I don't think many people know that because the rhyme we think of, she's the murderer. Lizzie.
Let's blame little children for perpetuating this injustice.
Right. Maybe Mother Goose. Who knows?
Well, anything that you put into a song is going to be embedded in memory forever.
Right. But I gotta say, I looked at multiple resources. I spent a lot of time on this today, and I waffled. I went back and forth, and I still feel like I don't know, and I'm actually leaning towards probably. So that's where I'm at.
Waffled.
I waffled. Okay, so let's talk about Lizzie. She was an American woman. She was tried and acquitted in 1892 for the axe murders of her father and stepmother in Fall River, Massachusetts.
You smell toast.
I do too. I smell toast. I wanted to say that, but I'm like, burning toast, isn't that like a sign of schizophrenia or a stroke or something? It's something like that.
Really?
When you smell burnt toast,
Just
it's like
about making
I didn't want to make it publicly known that I was having a symptom. I'm so glad you affirmed that.
We're having
like extra
a joint experience.
Know downstairs that they're burning your toast.
My ex-husband lives downstairs and they went out. I saw them leave earlier.
Well, then someone's making toast? Did you need to check out there?
I think
there's a toaster.
I think it's fine.
No, this is definitely a burnt toast smell.
No, yeah, but it's not like the house is on fire smell. It's like a toast smell. It's a pleasant.
I mean, doesn't it start pleasant until it becomes dangerous? Doesn't it start with that smell of burnt paper is quite pleasant, and then
isn't the smell of burnt stuff like associated with demons?
Oh, I don't know that. Just kidding.
Do you know? Oh, Sarah doesn't know.
Jump back,
Sarah. You don't know about the demon portal right over there.
We have a demon portal in the closet up through the roof.
I mean,
we had a podcast.
I've had many incidents. Maybe I should.
I felt like somebody was watching.
No,
I kind of want to reverse the camera, but it'll be a whole thing. So I've had many situations when I've been sitting in here, and this is thick metal beaded curtains. Like they don't move on their own. And one has lifted up and clacked all of them. And
we've done podcasts in here. I've done counseling sessions, and like there'll be noises in the closet. Yeah. There'll be like movement. We had like all of a sudden like this
started flooding
just
water
in the closet.
Just pouring through there. So now there's like actually a demon portal.
Yeah, there's an actual
from where all the water is coming through.
Right. Cool. So that's that over there.
So if you want to just
they're making toast right now.
I think
ghost toast. Also a possible podcast. Their name.
Or ghost waffles.
Ghost waffles. Oh, well, that would probably smell similar. With peanut butter and syrup.
Back to your talk.
Okay, sorry. Lizzie Borden. Okay, Borden. I think Anthony Bourdain. That's what Borden. Okay, Borden.
Future topic for me.
I know.
When I'm ready.
I know. It took me a long time to get to. So, okay. So nobody else has been charged for the murders. Let's just let that be known. She ended up dying of pneumonia at the age of 66. So like she got to that age, just before the death of her older sister, Emma. Okay, so this was like a big deal back in the day when this happened. It still gets like, I think there's movies and shows about it still today. Ooh, wine hard all of a sudden. It got warm in here after the toast, didn't it?
There's like smoke coming out.
I think your heater is pushing the toast smell up. Okay, so Lizzie.
We do have mice sometimes.
Great.
So maybe some mice.
It's relevant.
Maybe some mice dragged some bread into the heater vent,
This
and it's
is
like
such a hard topic. I was so interested.
I'm just
in this.
really glad that this is a very old case, and our inability to focus hopefully won't affect.
No, let me
anybody
just
that's
say
alive today.
right now, this case is still unsolved. So if they haven't figured out by now, we're sure as hell not.
But I'm
gonna-
thinking of like living relatives that are affected. Like hopefully
Oh no, yeah, right,
it's-
right.
it's past that.
They're all
point
dead.
where they're
all dead, and I can say
or
that
like
to them.
distant relatives, or like yes, this is in the public domain. We've just
Right.
accepted.
No, that's we did it intentionally. So, okay, all right. So they grew up, and the dad. I was gonna read things, and now I'm gonna give the abbreviated version. Dad, super rich, probably equates out to about 7 millionaire level
Oh,
in today's time.
super duper
Richest man in the town.
Oh,
Okay, right now here's the piece I found very
the big
interesting.
house.
So I went to multiple sources because not everything gave everything. So he, although being very wealthy, had no electricity in his house and didn't have tubs or toilets. No running water. He was coined as a penny pincher. Like he
They used
felt
to
like
call
that.
miser.
Ooh, that's a good word, miser. So he misered his home, and with him. So
I love how you made a noun a verb.
thanks. I like to switch things up a bit. So Lizzie's mom passed away when she was 2 years old, and had since been living with her dad, stepmother, and the wicked stepmother
I don't know.
and
They're always vilified.
and her sister. So both her and her sister weren't married like into their late 20s, 30s, like most would have been at that time. So that was kind of abnormal. But they lived all together in one house. So he was very successful. She actually was very like well known in the community. She did charity work all the time. She donated. She was known for like doing Thanksgiving dinners for families. Donated money when she had it. Very charitable, part of the like Christian something or other society. So very well known as a good person in the community.
When you're rich, that can just be your job. It's just doing charitable.
Right, and I think that's what she did. Right. Very proper young woman. She used to teach Sunday school to children of immigrant children who just came to the United States. You were gonna say something. I saw you breathed. Go ahead. I'll take it.
I just think just because somebody's doing that, they're not necessarily proper.
So I have to tell, and I'm gonna preface all of what I'm gonna say by saying, right before the jury went to go make their decision, that took 90 minutes in an era when women weren't seen as improper. The judge said to the jury, please keep in mind her Christian nature when you make up your decision about her fate. That is the last thing that was said to them before they went and made their decision that took 90 minutes.
I'm deeply studying microaggressions right now, and so this is like very relevant.
Right. So that was
now,
like
just because somebody
tidbit.
isn't doing those things doesn't mean they're improper.
Exactly, because that's the other side, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, in this time
Or
and
hiding
era,
something.
in this time and era, it was so one of the things, I'm jumping all over the place, but I think it's appropriate. So one of the things that in the court trials that
You
came
gotta
up,
meet us where we're at.
right, I'm here.
We're kind of all over.
I'm
here now.
right here. So the prosecutors, one of the theories that they came up with, because in the lineup that I'll tell you what happened, there was only a few minutes between when the maid came in and saw Lizzie with the bodies. She had clean clothes on. So there was no murder weapon. So it's like, how did that happen so fast? So the prosecutor said she could have killed them undressed and then dressed. And part of the defense out loud is in the record that the defense audibly laughed because a woman of her stature would never be just naked in the house.
What year was this?
1890.
Well, this fits with, remember what I was talking about, the dirty, filthy, nasty junk?
Dirty, filthy, nasty
People did
junk.
not get naked.
Right. So this was like
it was
just
considered
mentally ruled out, like
not something you would do.
She would not be naked and do this. But when I talk about the rest of the timelines, this is where I get highly suspicious because the timelines don't make sense that she says. But why she was rejected for, why she was acquitted.
Yeah.
To me, because like in this day and era, I'm like, why wouldn't she if she was like planned it out?
But culturally, I mean, people really like that would have been very far out of the norm.
All men jury to
even take your clothes off because they didn't bathe.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. Like they didn't get naked.
So there's already this preconception of her, again, being a highlight in the society. I can see that. It's good.
Underwear was not a thing yet.
Okay, so her older sister, Emma Borden.
And that's not in a sexy way.
They were all very religious. Thank you for clarifying.
You just
let it go.
Yeah. You just wore a lot of wool.
And you didn't go to school.
And it was like my experience with my wool town today.
Become a patron.
Become a patron if you want to know.
That's going to scare them away, to be fair.
Or invite them in. Our tribe is our tribe.
It wouldn't be me. Okay, here we go.
I'd be like, yeah, it's worth $1.
Back here, over here. Okay, so
I thought you weren't going to snap at me anymore.
This was a pulling towards,
but that was still snapping.
It was still snapping, but a gentle towards. Mm-hmm. There was one prominent time when I was like, I don't remember what I said though.
You did snap at me.
I did snap once.
Animal. Well, I mean, I am a human animal. But...
There was apologies, but sometimes it might be more. Okay, it does help. She looked at me.
Mm-hmm. But at what cost?
I mean, this discussion. Okay. So, in 1892, now I'm lost.
Humanity.
I'm so lost. I'm sorry I snapped at you again.
Okay,
twice with two hands, actually, and I pulled.
I know that was double snap.
I know. Okay. Just don't want to do this forever. I keep losing where I'm at.
No, I'm in. I am in. I am here now.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So Lizzie rarely ate meals with her family. The dad, there apparently was like, it was known that he would kill pigeons in the barn, that they would have local children hunt. Like it was like I don't know, there's like a weird thing with the hatchet there. Lizzie actually built the roost for the pigeons.
They would kill pigeons with hatchets.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Lizzie had commonly recounted that she was upset over his killing of the pigeons as well. So there's that little thing. I don't know. These little things don't seem to matter until you're like, why did this happen? Then in 1892, both sisters, there was a family argument. And I could not figure out what this family argument was about, other than it sounds like it was about money, but it's not clear. Because stepchildren were getting involved as well. So it sounded like it had to do with money. So it prompted both of the sisters to take an extended vacation in New Bedford. They returned to Fall River a week before the murders happened. So they left and came back. Lizzie chose to stay in a local rooming house for 4 days before returning to the family residence. So there was a tiff. There was a tiff a week before this happened.
And all this sounds very unusual for the time.
Right. Like
for women to just be like off on vacation alone.
Daddy paid. But daddy penny pincher, who doesn't have toilet and electricity, pays
for them to go. A chaperone, you know.
Right. That didn't happen.
So I think there's a lot of leeway.
So tension, right? Like tension's building in the family. It's been building. There's stepchildren coming to the house involved in this. And there's rumors. it was wishy-washy. Some things said that a stepchild, possibly an illegitimate son, according to history's taking, was asking for money, and that didn't go his way, and he was upset. So there was some things like that being said.
Was Daddy Borden stepping out, as they used to say?
I don't think so. Like, he was well known, but the stepmom said that, like, she was worried that, like, people may have bad feelings towards him because he has money, which means he has sway in the community, which may have bad impact on.
But this illegitimate child, I mean, is it a love child?
His name is William, from what I read, and there wasn't much. So it was like a theory that was posed, not so much a like, here's what happened sort of deal. Okay, so the night before the murders, John Morse, the brother of Lizzie and Emma's deceased mom, visited. So this is the one. He was invited to stay for a few days to discuss business matters with the brother-in-law. Some writers have speculated that this about property transfers may have aggravated an already tense situation that had happened, weeks before. So it's still going on. They're back in the house and there's still money, property talks, which I didn't know about when I had heard about the murder stuff. Like, I didn't know about any of that. So several days before the murder, the entire household violently ill, like throwing up, very sick, enough where...
Was it the plague?
The stepmom went to the doctor the morning before the murder happened, saying that she felt like she was poisoned.
I was going to say poison.
Right. But later on, autopsies found no poison. So some theories speculate that maybe just like old mutton. I don't know what mutton is.
Lamb.
Is it lamb?
Yeah.
Haven't you heard of mutton busting?
No.
I mean,
I have
old mutton would certainly cause some distress.
Maybe left on the stove could have created food poisoning, and in the heightened stress, people panicked.
Well, I think refrigeration wasn't what it is today.
Right. So
food handling techniques have not been honed.
And the stepmom, being scared because he's a well-known man with money, feared that it was poisoning because everybody got sick. So, okay. So let's talk about the murders and the timeline here. Okay. So John Morse, that's the brother.
What does this mean?
I don't know. Arrived in the evening.
I just did it because we were both doing it.
What are we
doing?
Mirror neurons. That's a thing too.
Why are we? What is?
He slept in the guest room that night after breakfast the next morning. At which Andrew, Abby, Lizzie, John, and the Borden's maid, Maggie Sullivan, were all present. So they were all there in the morning. Andrew and John went to the sitting room. They chatted for an hour. Morse then left around 8:48 in the morning. So he was gone. He went to buy a pair of oxen and visit his niece in Fall River.
As one does.
So he was planning to come back around lunch or noon. Andrew left for his morning walk. The dad left for his morning walk around 9 a.m. Okay. The cleaning of the guest room was one of Lizzie's and Emma's regular chores. Abby went upstairs sometime between 9 to 10:30 to make the bed. According to forensics, Abby was facing her killer at the time of the attack. So this is stepmom. She was first struck on the side of the head with a hatchet, which cut her just above the ear, causing her to turn and fall face down on the floor, creating contusions on her nose and her forehead.
So that speaks to a surprise attack.
And there are photos. So mom fell that way. That's her body that way. That's her feet there. That's dad here. So
they had photography.
They did have photography. I was curious if I was going to see photos. Okay. So you see the photo. Mom's on the top, dad's on the bottom. Photography. Right. Okay. So, Andrew, let me make sure I know where I'm at again. Okay. So her killer struck her multiple times. So she had 17 direct hits to the back of her head, killing her. So she had the one here and then 17 to the back of the head. At some point that killed her. Probably not that long after. So to me, there's like, okay, I'm going to kill someone and rob them. I'm not going to spend the time doing 17 hits, in my opinion. There's going to be some emotion involved to do 17 hits.
Or even someone just scared, like thinking, make sure.
Oh, right.
Like I gotta commit.
Committing to it.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't want
Again, like to me though, like in that moment of actually doing that, like I don't like
like a normal.
but right. But to me, like 5 times would feel excessive.
I think you gotta be sure.
18 times.
Excuse me. I
I
think you gotta be sure. You know, I mean, if you're committed and you're
sure is like 3 or 4.
I don't know, skull is thick.
A hatchet though.
I know, but I would want to if I was gonna do it and be in that situation,
be sure that it's done.
I would do it until they stop moving.
Efficiency.
Because like once you're in it, like
Okay, but tell me this 10 times.
witnesses
10 times with a hatchet to the back of the head and they're on the floor. How do you convince yourself that 7 times more is necessary?
No, I would do it until they stop moving. Is what I'm
But
saying.
you think that they're still going to move after 10 times?
It depends. Maybe one's not super deep.
Oh, you mean maybe
the
it's
next one
like
is.
maybe a female?
No.
I've seen her photos. I'm not.
I think passion
Yeah.
can
Because your arguments, like emotion was like
come in
the rage takes over
and maybe like they're moving a little and you miss a hit. I don't think it has to do with strength. I think it has to do with just you're doing it until they stop moving because you don't want them to name you.
And I'm thinking
like you're
that
committed.
if emotion takes over, you're not looking at them and you're not seeing straight anymore. Your emotion is
that's where
flooded.
you might miss and like be like, oh, that one didn't really.
Well, they're not counting
plan.
missed ones. They're counting
No,
direct
but
contact.
I mean, didn't like maybe it was a little off, and then you have to like keep going.
Right.
I think I would if it was me. Not that.
Right. We're talking from our own perceptions of not being axe murderers. Just prefacing here
today. I would do it until they stop moving. That's what I would be doing.
Okay, so okay. At this point, then 17 hits happened. Andrew returned to the house at 10:30. He couldn't get the key to open the door for some reason, so he knocked.
Also, I'd be horrified by they're probably making a bunch of sounds. And I would just be like,
the kind of the
stop.
trauma of the
yes,
because we talked
like
about
you're
that
traumatizing with Slenderman.
Slenderman, yeah. Right? Like the trauma.
I think that would be part of it. Like you want it to just stop because you're horrified by the whole situation because you've never done this before. You're not like a seasoned serial killer yet, and so it's your first job.
Right. Exactly. So
later you might become more comfortable
after 5,
maybe.
Sounds and movements
and understanding how much blood is enough.
Right. And I think it's your first kill
and all you've seen is what's on TV, and in the 1890s not much, so you don't know
because there's no TV,
right?
There's no YouTube.
Exactly.
You
have no context for what this looks like.
Dark web.
So Dad goes, door doesn't unlock. Do you need a second? Do you have a second over there? Okay,
can we share it?
Is there one?
Oh, Sarah has a sad situation too.
It's okay. It's fine. You can have. I need to be able to read still. And I'm driving.
Wait,
you too.
Oh my God, Sarah's trapped behind the wire.
Come around this way here.
I'm like, this with you.
It's a problem.
You made it.
I'm not looking.
We're fine. And there's no judgment. No. In the not ghost closet, do you see how she started walking?
Oh, look up into the demon portal while you're over there. Look up there in the ceiling. See the demon portal?
That's really scary.
That happened while we were doing a podcast episode. That happened in the middle of it. In the middle,
like pouring.
There was nothing, and then there was.
But sadly, that was one of our lost podcasts, so nobody
could
ever
it was a lost cast.
The demon was lost.
We talk about this. I still never came back to that topic.
Not want you to.
I never wanted to do it again.
I'm not sick at all. Are you comfortable sharing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Really healthy right now.
Okay, so Dad goes to open the door. It doesn't open, so he knocks. Sullivan, the maid at the time, comes and opens the door. She testifies that she hears Lizzie giggle up at the top of the stairs. So she goes to open the door and she hears Lizzie giggle. Okay. This was considered significant as Abby was already dead by this time. So timeline shows that Abby would have been dead. The only other person who would have been upstairs was Lizzie. Okay. So
Unless he was a murderer.
Well, but he was outside and the maid saw him at the door and let him in. And Lizzie comes down the stairs. So Lizzie later denied being upstairs at all and testifies that her father had asked her where Abby was, to which she replied that a messenger had delivered Abby a note, a summons to visit a sick friend. Nobody to this day has found this note. It doesn't exist. It was never found in the house. I mean, at least as far as what evidence is found. Sullivan, the maid, stated that she had then removed Andrew's boots and helped him into his slippers before he lay down on the sofa for a nap. Contradiction that ended up biting the prosecutors was that in the crime scene photos, he was wearing his boots. So the maid said she took boots off and put on slippers, but he was wearing boots in the crime scene.
Why don't I have a maid to help me off with my shoes and to my slippers when I get home?
So to me, this like one of two things. Either she's lying, right? Or she, of the time doesn't want to be seen as not doing what she was supposed to have done when he came in, potentially. So I see it either of two ways. Okay, so Sullivan then informed Lizzie, because Lizzie came downstairs and said, there's a department store sale. Lizzie said Sullivan was welcome to come along with her, but Sullivan felt unwell because, again, they had all been feeling sick in the house and went to take a nap in her bedroom instead. So she was in the house, took a nap. Sullivan then testified that she was in her third floor room resting from cleaning windows. So here's another tidbit. She had informed them she was feeling very unwell and was ordered to clean all the outdoor windows on an extremely hot day that morning. So she had finished cleaning all the outside windows when this happened. This comes into a theory number 2 of was Sullivan involved, because she was upset about having to do this task when she was feeling unwell.
But
just throwing it out
to
there.
The point of murder, though.
Right. Which was my edge too. There's a third theory. Do you want to hear?
Just here, been like the last straw. Like it wasn't just that. It's been.
But you want to hear the third theory to make you really raise an eyebrow?
Right.
Yeah. That Lizzie was on her menstrual period. Wait. That caused some sort of psychosis and dissociative fugue that then created the situation to murder with an axe.
I mean, I could potentially be correct.
So there you go.
What is the
theory number 3?
I would want to see a pattern of something like that having occurred.
So here's what was so upsetting to me is I found one source that actually said the full thing, which was due to her menstrual cycle. Everything else just labeled due to a fugue or due to dissociation.
What's this sexist fucking bullshit?
Right. So it gets watered down over time from
this
like
is why they
used to period.
Women can't be president because they're gonna push the button and launch nuclear attack when they're on their fucking period.
Right.
This was real in the 80s.
Well, that's what made me upset. It's like one thing from the actual past said menstrual cycle, and then everything else just said she may have had a dissociative fugue, and then people don't know what that means, and they just go, oh, mental health. She had a mental health problem, but nothing else shows mental health.
Dissociative fugue is even part of the really fucked up premenstrual dysphoria.
No, it's not. It's not even part of it. So anyways, that's theory number 3. By the way, number 1 is that she
part of it is the sensation of bloating.
Might make you axe murder. But that's the line.
But is it just a sensation or is it real?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a delusion of bloating.
Do we need to check, Sarah?
You know what?
You've had a rough
If
day.
that's how I go, that's how I go. I'm at that point.
I would tackle you. I'm at this point of like, if I tackle you,
It looks like you go down in history as a victim.
Two dirty
Maybe
girls.
children would make a rhyme.
one or another. We become the hero for dying in action, or we actually prevent it from happening. There's no lose here.
As
It's
long
either
as
that or we
I
die
get
a
a
victim.
children's rhyme.
I'll make a rhyme for
That's
you.
all I
You
want.
make a rhyme for us.
I thought
As the
you're
murder.
dead.
No, that's why she'll make it for us.
This is a honor, you guys.
She's still a friend. She's just on her period. Okay, all right. Here we go. Back into the void. Okay, so Sullivan testified that she had taken the boots off, right? However, that didn't happen. So she said that she was in the third floor room taking a nap after cleaning the windows when just before, which was reported by the that she had been charged with cleaning the windows that morning. Andrew was, which would only leave Lizzie in the house alone with them, if that were true. Andrew was slumped on a couch in the downstairs sitting room. And we found out later, struck around 11 times with a hatchet-like weapon. One of his eyes had been split cleanly in two. And that's what they said had killed him. He was slumped on a couch and I was just kidding. So he was still bleeding from his wounds and had a very recent attack from when the doctor attended. Dr. Bowen, the family physician, arrived from his home across the street, so he lived very close and pronounced them both dead. Detectives estimated that Andrew's death had occurred approximately at 11 a.m. So here's the deal is Lizzie comes downstairs. The other one goes upstairs. The maid goes upstairs, takes a nap. Says that she woke up to the sounds of Lizzie screaming, comes down, finds the dad dead. Lizzie tells the maid, go get the doctor and my friend, and has her go do that. So again, close by, fairly close by, this buys Lizzie some minutes, not long, but minutes between. And this is when everyone comes back and she's cleanly clothed. There's nothing on her, and there's no murder weapon there.
I think a morning murder seems unusual.
Right. It's very
Don't most murders occur in the nighttime?
And me neither. Some people said that
murder.
they had seen people around the house. However, it was, and this also bit the defense a bit. No, not defense. The prosecution a bit. There was actually people in the home in doing like construction work in the upper levels.
There'd be a lot of activity around.
So there were some people there, but they were gone before this supposedly happened. So some people said, "Oh, I saw people there," but they were already gone.
Like makes it sound like not premeditated, just like
yes,
crime of passion in the moment wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think with all the hacking.
With all the hacking, right?
Because it speaks to a crime.
And that's people said too, like, how did the maid sleep through? So I heard some people say that, like, in such a small house, but a 3-story house to me isn't small, first of all.
Not to start a whole nother topic, but we still are dealing with a local
unsolved
homicide where 2 individuals
were asleep
in the house and heard nothing.
And to me, what we know for a fact was dad took a nap. Mom could have been upstairs. Stepmom could have been sleeping or no, she was upright. She was facing the victim. She was upright.
House. I could be yelling at the top of my lungs on the 2nd story, and people down in the living room would not hear me.
Right, and so
old houses had really good insulation.
In this house here,
my house was built in 1909.
There's the house. To me, that's not a small house.
No, and if it had good insulation, like my house does, like honestly,
3 stories.
You can't hear people yelling. You can't hear the voices. You can hear footsteps, but you can't hear voices. Like you hear movement, but not voices.
So the investigation. I'm sharing wine. The investigation.
I like the like. It's like a spin the bottle situation. Yeah, I'm like, oh my heart.
So what she shared was contradictory. Like when she kept sharing the reports, it kept being different almost every time with the police, which made the defense or the prosecution feel strong because she kept like it changed almost every time she told them what happens. One time she was in the kitchen ironing, and the other time she was upstairs doing something else. So like her story changed on multiple occasions.
What would be the motive?
So
if the maid did it.
If the maid did it. So their whole thing with the maid is just that it was hot and she was upset that she had to wash the windows when she was sick. But to me, I'm like, when you're sick and you're hot already after wash, she washed.
You have the energy.
They know she washed all the windows. I wouldn't have the energy. And she had just timing wise had come back into the house. So like, to me, the timelines don't match up. Energy level for that doesn't match up. Like, she may have been angry, but she would have needed days to plot that out then.
So what would be Lizzie's motive? Like, I don't get it.
Dad has a lot of money, and so here's the deal. A lot of again, not the main story read, but side stuff said that maybe he favored the step siblings more. He actually gifted
very unusual,
gifted a whole house to a step sibling, not to her or her sister.
Was there a will? Follow the money.
$7 million.
But was there a will?
A ton of money. She ended up living off of that money when he died.
But was there a will?
That there wasn't, like, I'm sure there was a specific will at the time. So here's, lawyers contradicted this money pinching perception that was pushed in a lot of media, said that he paid for the year, like for her to go to Europe a few years before, which isn't money pinching for someone who's in that position. And they said that he was very worried about her financially. So lawyers are saying this. So he was protecting her financially in that way. So the kind of perception of he's money pinching, she's, starving for money. And here's this man with all this money.
He sent the sisters off on this like retreat.
Right.
And then like the hotel stay on the way back because they weren't ready to re-enter society.
Right.
Like, that's not money pinching.
No. So I saw this side that I'm like, I don't really agree with that, especially for the time. So I could see like, we don't
extravagant.
Right. Like if we have running water and toilets and other people don't, that may be perceived a certain way. I could see that being a decision that's made.
I woke up to this morning?
What?
I used the toilet at 6:30 in the morning, barely awake. Flushed it, and immediately started geysering out.
That happened in my office.
I was barely awake.
So bad.
Like
a day.
I was barely awake. This morning. No, this whole day has been a shit show. Yeah. Literally. No, I'm like, what is happening? I'm grabbing towels, my bath towels, which I don't want to use for that, but that's what's here.
A crisis, a wine catastrophe. Like,
do I need a cleansing? I need a cleansing.
Probably.
Okay, after this, let's do a ceremony.
I mean, you do something in the mirror too. Okay, so
no, that's gonna bring in bat shit.
I need to get the mirror out of my basement. Is all I keep thinking about. Okay, so
and I'm sure this has nothing to do with anything.
It's been on the table this whole time. I mean, I don't think it is sad. It's creepy.
No, this has a whole backstory, which is actually quite heartwarming. But maybe I'll save it for the post fund for our patrons. Pay $1 if you want to know the story behind that. Okay. Seemingly sad head, which is actually not sad.
It's staring straight at me right now. Can you please just shift its gaze? Thank you. That was it was a little too direct eye contact. Okay. So okay. So at this point, we know the timeline, we know really all of that stuff. No poison identified in the body. So some of the people, to me, in my mind, like the step siblings being there earlier, being angry about something and like poisoning the family and then coming back and doing something because it didn't work, wasn't poison. They weren't there at that time. It kind of rules that out in my mind, at least. Okay, so Abby the stepmom was in the upstairs guest room. So she was in the guest room. I don't know what she was doing up there. So it's not her bedroom. So there had to have been an interaction at some point. Like she wasn't sleeping in her own bed. And the dad was asleep on the like lounger, like he was taking a nap. He came in and took a nap because here's the deal. He was informed by Lizzie that stepmom was gone taking care of this sick friend. So he is like, okay, she's gone. I'm taking a nap. Boot's still on though. And
how do we know that information?
how do we know that? Because Lizzie said. Lizzie said that stepmom went to town because she got a note saying that a friend was sick. So stepmom went to town and then apparently had come back. So she was creating this gap in the timeline, but it would have either been someone had to stay in the house. I remember reading this. There was 90 minutes between the murders, between mom and stepmom and dad being killed. Right. So they were like, either someone had to stay in the house for 90 minutes or leave and come back, which would have been odd as well. Right. So the only people in the house technically.
So the stepmom was killed first, or the
stepmom was killed first around 9 something in the morning, and dad was killed around 11
but
something.
Was dad there when the stepmom was killed, or no?
She was already dead according to
and then
timeline.
He came home and the maid did the slipper exchange. That
didn't actually happen.
Okay.
But again, when we make reports in the middle of a trauma, we may be remembering something that happened the other day because we're in like that panic state.
Well, that's why they're getting rid of eyewitness reports and
right. And that's a lot
so fallible.
A lot of these got tossed out because of that. A lot of witness statements didn't even get accepted. So that's, she was acquitted. So obviously this didn't stick.
But maybe the maid came in, Lizzie had to wait until the maid wasn't around.
Yeah.
That's a timeline, right? Well, and dad came home. She had to wait till dad came home from his walk. Because it happened after that.
Do you know anything about Lizzie's childhood and how the parents treated her?
So from what
what's the trauma background?
Mom died of an illness after being 2 years old.
Early childhood trauma right there.
Right there. She didn't have a good relationship with stepmom. Stepmom had been around for a long while, but it was kind of the household was identified as being cold. So a lot of that kind of exchanges and statement saying that dad maybe preferred the stepchildren to his real children. I don't know how much of that is, again, fantasize, trying to make it sound more than it is.
Reported abuse from dad to Lizzie.
So I didn't even want to mention it because there was possible sexual abuse because that wasn't highly reported during the time. That it was never stated anywhere as a thing.
It's theorized, but
right. Again, just because something isn't typically reported during that time doesn't mean it happened either. So I didn't want to pull that in as a technical theory, but possibly. But again, there was a lot of siblings in the house. So if it was happening, it probably wouldn't just be to her, I'm assuming. I don't know.
And I just want to say that back in the past, there was often this blaming of the female parent as being a refrigerator mom that would lead to kids having problems that I think is a sexist theory.
Totally. As a stepmom entering the house. Yeah. So to me, there's so much layering of what each thing I read had a different angle completely. So I tried to piece together the different angles to put in as much as I felt relevant. The sexual abuse thing, there was nothing other than could have happened.
I mean, to me, if she's going to do this, which is so outside of the cultural norms at that time, I think it would take a lot more than now at times. Right. What is the pattern of history before there has to be some?
I didn't read trauma in this at all.
But there has to be some pattern of behavior.
But unless it's personality, in the terms of so yes, she was very prominent in the community. She was well known. She was well liked. She gave money. She Dad gave money, and now dad
the bed.
And now
dad fires. And now kill animals.
But again, if if it's about presentation in the community that's been groomed to you by your family because your dad has a lot of money and you have to present a certain way, those things are probably hidden and covered up.
That guy, filthy rich.
Oh.
Elon.
No.
Oh.
Elon.
There's a lot more has come to light about Elon.
Epstein's
pedophile island
stuff, right?
Just the way she was raised by a very rich
family
and
so the
Giselle.
image,
yes.
But that's her name, Ghislaine.
But not Jizzy.
Yeah.
But
yes, but that's kind of my angle on it is how she was viewed in court.
Ghislaine Maxwell, that's her name.
how she was viewed in court was very sexist at the time. Or, I mean, sexist to us now, but very normal for the time. But this view that, you know, well, her dad was from prominent money. She was of a Christian faith. She, you know, gave to the community, but how much of that is image that's expected of you when your dad's in this role and you're living with him in this household, you're not married yet. Like, what are you doing? What's your purpose? So
and it's tough with these like historical cases because
we can't go back.
Yeah, there's no Twitter accounts. We can look at what they post, you know, it's tough.
So her answers to police was contradictory. Initially, she reported.
What if she had a Twitter account?
Well, initially she would have twitted that she reported twitted that she reported hearing
don't be so Twitter-pated.
or I don't have a Twitter. I don't know how this works. That's what the rabbit on Bambi said.
I don't know Twitter either, but I know it's called a tweet.
Twitter's boring.
It just seems like a cesspool.
It's stupid. So dumb. Initially, she reported hearing a groan or a scraping noise or a distress call before entering the house. So it changed. Like, I heard a scraping, I heard a groan, I heard someone yelling for help. 2 hours later, she told police she heard nothing at all and actually entered the house, not really realizing that anything was wrong at all. No, Lizzie. So at first she said she came downstairs because she heard a noise. There was also a report that she heard a scraping sound. There's another report that she heard just someone in distress. And then she reported 2 hours later that she came into the house and heard nothing at all, didn't know anything was wrong. I don't like that. When asked where her stepmom was, she recounted Abby receiving a note, again from a friend, which they never found. Most of the officers who interviewed her reported they disliked her attitude. And I'm confused about this again, because it could have been from the time. But again, this is opposite to how she is viewed normally by the public. Mm-hmm. So they said they didn't like her attitude. They said she was too calm and poised.
She could be in shock.
So
her parents are just murdered.
Nobody checked her for bloodstains. There's no one that checked her clothes at the time of the incident to see if she had bloodstains on her. So that, to me, is a big flop. Police did search her room, but it was very rudimentary at most. At trial, they admitted to not doing a proper search because she said she wasn't feeling well. So she made a statement she wasn't feeling well, and it kind of rushed them through looking through her space as a daughter of the victim. Okay. So they were criticized later for the lack of diligence. In the basement. Go ahead.
Idaho murders.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
it's very similar. A lot of parallels.
This seriously came. It is Moscow.
Yes, it's Moscow.
Okay.
Not the cow, it's the co.
Moscow.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Okay.
Holy.
Still unsolved.
This is still unsolved too. It's really going to be sad if this, 200 years from now is still unsolved.
Due diligence.
They've released a description of a white, I think, Hyundai Elantra. So look that up if you know anything about that. Please report it. It's the only clue they've given out where they're asking for the help of the public.
So I did think about that too when I was reading this. It came up a lot in my mind.
If this goes unsolved for that long, I'm going to be so distressed. Well, I'm not even personally involved.
And that's what stressed me about this was
the humanity of it all.
Reading this is okay, if things were done correctly, would we have known an absolute? Because there could have been an absolute here possibly if they had done things right.
To their times. I think we can't
not searching nothing,
judge the past based on present knowledge.
But that's the whole thing. But as a woman, part of what a woman, this is what purely drove the jury, is a woman of this stature, of this involvement in the Christian community would never do this. That alone had such a sway on the time. So I have a hard time with this. So they found 2 axes, a hatchet head with a broken handle in the basement. The hatchet head that was found that they suspect was used appeared to have a break in the handle that appeared fresh. There was, however, ash and dust on it. Unlike the other bladed tools, it had been it appeared to be deliberately applied, like rubbed on it versus just like patina.
To try to hide fingerprints.
Right. Right. And blood. But however, it wasn't coated in blood. Like, oh yes, that was the murder weapon. So there was some intentionality behind that.
We need that, like, what's that forensic investigator that studies like blood splatters?
Right.
Like, would it be
Absolutely.
realistic to do this act and not be covered in blood? But that's modern times.
But that's why, and that's what
we
the
don't have
defense
that
said. The
technology
defense
back
said
then.
in this amount of time, she would have been covered in blood after those 2 murders. And they said if she planned this the way that we think that she had to have planned this, she would have been naked. She would have taken her clothes off. She would have murdered them and put on her clean dress. And
I laughed at her.
They laughed at her in court. But if this is someone who did plan this ahead of time, she would have thought about, I'm going to have blood on me. How do I take care of that? And the maid is going to be in the house.
But I'm going to plan it at night when no one's around.
I feel her doing it naked is very far-fetched for the time.
Right.
Like I think there would have been a pattern of behavior that would have been outside the norm, and there's nothing.
No, have blood on her, and then
but again, so would the maid. The maid didn't have blood when they went there either.
So maybe it's an outside person.
Okay, and that's what Lizzie says. Is she says that somebody came in. Her report is somebody came into the house and abused and
them greedy stepkids
came and attacked the dad. She did not.
There's some business.
But she said, but she said that she saw this happen. She did not say it was a sibling. You would think that if it's a sibling you have contested with over finances, you would say it was so and so who came in and did this. She didn't. She said it was some unknown attacker who came in and attacked her dad.
That actually sounds feasible.
So that's what she said.
I mean, it could be.
It could be. I mean, she was acquitted, right? So we don't know. Okay, so here's the next bit. Just to throw a wrench in that. Because again, I went back and forth. Here we go.
Yeah.
Because of the mysterious illnesses, the family's milk and Andrew and Abby's stomachs were removed during autopsy and tested. No poison was found. Residents suspected. So Lizzie reported, and residents and the town store reported that the day before the murder happened, Lizzie purchased a diluted form of, what's it called? It's an acid, basically, a hydrocyanic acid from the local drugstore the day before. Her defense was that she inquired about the acid to clean her furs. However, defense had an expert come in and said that it does not have antiseptic properties that would have been used for cleaning, that it would not have been advised for her to use for cleaning purposes.
That had been, she tried to poison them with that, but it didn't come up on the tests because that wasn't.
They weren't looking for it.
So she tried poisoning them.
And it didn't work. And so then she was frustrated and the family's getting suspicious. Mom went to the doctor the day before for suspected poisoning. So, all right.
I would still want to see a pattern from childhood of something that would connect the dots.
To me, a rich family that doesn't want a pattern to be shown won't let it be known. You know, if it's not to the point of murder in the 1890s, it's not going to show up in the record books. Like,
but that's why it's tough to like pin it on her.
Anything. Right, but who else?
It's so long ago.
Right. So Lizzie and Emma's friend, Alice Russell, decided to stay with them the night following the murders while Morse spent the night in the attic guest room. Police were stationed around the house that night, during which an officer said he had seen Borden enter the cellar with Russell, her friend, carrying a kerosene lamp and a slop pail. He stated he saw both women exit the cellar, after which Borden returned alone, though he was unable to see what she was doing. He stated it appeared she was bent over the sink. So this is the night of the murder, bent over a sink in the cellar with her best friend, who she had specifically requested the maid go get with the doctor, which to me is odd.
I mean,
that's odd. To me, I wouldn't think, get my best friend too.
You wouldn't.
I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. I'd be like, my dad is obviously axe murdered on the couch. Get the fucking doctor. So I don't, again,
You
different
wouldn't
opinions.
cause for another support.
Not
Maybe
at that moment, maybe 2 hours later.
she's probably not an INTJ. She's probably an E.
Who then has her friend go in the basement to help her
You know what I
wash
mean?
off whatever murder thing
An
she did.
E would immediately
Probably.
call a friend. That would be first.
Would that be first
instinct.
thing
Yes.
when you see your dead?
I know a lot of E's. I know a lot of
All right,
E's.
all right. I don't know many, so
They
I'll trust you.
talk to people constantly and immediately to
So
the detriment of calling other people that maybe should be called.
that next day, the police conducted a more thorough search on the house. They inspected the sister's clothes, confiscated the broken handle, hatchet, blah, blah, blah. So here's my issue is they let them stay in the fucking house that whole night until they then go in and confiscate the supposed murder weapon and the clothes. Again, she was seen going downstairs in the cellar on the night of the murder with her best friend leaning over a sink. Just saying, at a certain point, too many coincidences become raise the eyebrow at least.
I mean, that's like the old.
It's
Like
consequential.
the thing with the old days,
Circumstantial.
like it's different. Like obviously now they'd be like, you have to leave the house. We're doing an investigation. They put up yellow tape. They probably didn't even have yellow tape then.
But to tell you how
maybe they had yellow yarn.
The police at the time came out the next morning and told her she was a suspect. So the police at that point were like, we suspect you.
Yeah, but they didn't make them leave. They didn't put up
Jury,
yellow yarn.
Not initially, but after that first night of monitoring the house, she was marked a suspect. And then it was in the jury in the courtroom where this all crashed as far as any evidence, any interviews and testimonies went down the toilet because they were all circumstantial. Okay, so they never determined whether the dress. So she said she was washing her dress because she rubbed up against fresh paint. In my opinion, again, why are you rubbing up against fresh paint against the day? You know there was nothing freshly painted in the house.
Oh, that's really
so the day your parents get brutally axe murdered, you rub up against fresh paint somehow and are watching.
What were those workers doing? Were they not painting?
They were upstairs in the attic.
Were they not painting?
Based on that, I feel like it was her.
Oh, just because of the dress cleaning, Sarah?
No, her to me though, the excuse that was used, I brushed up against fresh paint. She had a specific excuse versus something that could sound mundane, I'd believe more. Like I had to do laundry.
Wine on my clothes.
Right. Fresh paint. Who was painting? There was nothing freshly painted in the house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. That's weird.
It's weird. Okay.
I would have believed a wine spill.
Agreed. So
she should have said that.
So I shouldn't commit a murder tonight? Is that what you're saying?
Is that all that?
Or I should?
Is that the whole act?
I had that planned for 5 weeks.
Oh my
I
gosh.
was just watching.
This got really dark. So I want to.
On the tape.
It's on the tape. It's
Wait,
just
I'm
wine.
sitting here reading, and you guys are talking about murder. Did I miss
just
something?
wine.
Is it gonna be me? That's all I need to know.
Sarah thinks it's her. You think it's you?
I got an alarm system, but I don't think it's gonna be you. Okay, all right. It's gonna tangent. Let's not contain it. So I told you a bit about the trial already. I wanted to share something I did find. So 5 days before the trial, in the same town, Bertha Manchester was found hacked to death by a hatchet-like object in her kitchen. The similarities were brought up by and noted by the jurors, actually, like, hey, this just came up. This is very similar. However, Jose Correa de Mayo, a Portuguese immigrant, was convicted of this murder in 1894. And was determined not to have been in the vicinity of the Fall River at the time of the Borden murders. So something happened similar in the same town, but not in the vicinity at the time when these murders happened. So just throwing up a question mark, possibly. But again, he was detained and not in the vicinity. So he wouldn't have been the one to do the Borden murders, but it's possibly...
It was Lizzie.
Well, and that's what the question mark is. Did she do something else to someone who she maybe also felt a certain way about, or who maybe knew something about? Because it's so close to the time of she was already
So was she a serial killer? So the question.
Right.
The poison thing?
I feel like
That
she
has
might be
something-
partially judged because she looks kind of creepy.
There was mention about her
Have you seen
possible.
her face?
Not recently.
Is there a face in her thing?
Yeah, she's not that creepy though. I
think-
mean,
I think
for the time, she's not.
there
that
may
look,
be a creepy judgment.
I don't think there's that.
No, there's
creepy.
another view of her.
I think she
Okay.
tried to poison them.
So the hard part.
I think her eyes are
Her
really
eyes-
close together.
Her
Yeah.
So the thing is,
Which is not like
I'm
conventional
I'm
beauty.
so torn because before this happened, it's not like she had a bad identity in the community. She was viewed as like a saint.
That's what she's saying. Like, was there any history of weird reports?
Yeah.
But not really.
No,
If
no,
not,
but
then I find a hard time believing it.
Unless she had a specific vendetta against.
Yeah,
Well,
it was
a lot of-
plotting all along
a
and
lot
was
of-
super genius.
but again, huge family conflict. And again, for the time, do we really fully understand what that means emotionally for this family? Probably not. But this huge emotional conflict, again, involving the step siblings who are favored, she's sent away, possibly during this to not be involved. And then she comes back, and within a week,
So
these murders
enraged.
happen. Right. Like,
Got the poison and tried
But
to
she
kill
chose
them.
not to come back to the house and have that like hotel break.
She tried.
but
to
did she
calm down,
choose, or did daddy send them away? Because it was both sisters that went.
Pissed her off even more.
And
Mhm.
who comes into the house while she's gone? Her step siblings discussing finances.
So she's
and
up with her
property.
sister though. Her
Right.
sister would have, I think, been
Good insight.
incommunicado.
They were, so there's some debate about that. Like, they weren't super close as well, but like, to me, from what I read, it didn't necessarily read like they would have been in cahoots or anything from what I
I
read.
don't know about who's, but I feel like there would have been some confiding.
Like, she was
Maybe.
so mad.
Like if
Unless-
she's that mad.
Unless she was upstairs with stepmom in that moment and was arguing. Because again,
think it
guest
was in the
bedroom,
moment.
yeah. You know, it's not while she's sleeping. It's not in the middle of the
It
night.
can't be 100% in the moment because she has a hatchet. You don't just
But-
like carry that with you all the time.
But you know, the maid is told.
There's some premeditation.
And how about this? We don't know who told the maid fully. Like, it was just instructed to her to clean the outside windows, which is a very big project to do when you've instructed the homeowners that you're feeling sick on an
Lizzie-
extremely hot day.
She told her to get.
Because the only person who was in the house during that time was Lizzie. So it gave some huge amount of alone time inside the house.
And maybe the maid had like, I don't know, she had this relationship with Lizzie, and so she was a little bit trying to cover for her. Like she,
'Cause there was
knew
some
that Lizzie did it,
changing.
and then she was like, "Oh, crap! Like I need to like."
I need a
protect-"
story.
And
Yeah.
then her story was off because of
Like
that.
she was on Lizzie's side.
Yes.
Because maids know everything about all like the dynamics that are going on in a house.
Right.
Oh,
So-
I mean, at least according to Downton Abbey.
When asked where her mom was, she said that she was visiting a sick friend, but we know the timeline doesn't match with that. So to me, that's a huge like, sorry.
She has friends. I mean, to me, that doesn't entirely fit with
But she received a note.
being a psychopathic murderer.
She received a note that she wasn't in the house at the time that I was in the house alone with her. But there was no note, no friend to confirm that. That never happened. It never
I'm still on the
happened.
fence with the whole thing.
Okay, all right, that's fine. So she stated that she thought Abby had returned and asked if someone could go upstairs and look for her. Sylvan and a neighbor, Miss Churchill, were halfway up the stairs, eye level with the floor. They were able to see in and saw Abby lying on the floor face down. Most of the officers who interviewed Borden reported that I already talked about it, disliked her attitude, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So Lizzie and Emma's friend stayed there, and then the police came through and did the thorough search the next day. The next morning, Russell entered the kitchen. So the maid entered the kitchen to find Borden tearing up a dress. She explained that she was planning to put it in the fire because it was covered in paint.
It was Lizzie.
It was never determined whether it was the dress she had been wearing during the murders. So again, like within a day of the murder or the next day of the murder, you're in there. So you're downstairs, first night, seen over a sink with your best friend. The next day, you're reported by the maid to have been tearing up a dress, saying you're going to burn it because there was paint on it. Both reasons you gave the excuse of paint.
So
Who burns a dress over paint?
for me, if I was on the jury, my instruction is beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yes.
I would not convict because I don't have beyond a reasonable doubt. I have doubts.
There's no DNA testing at the time. There's none of that.
I'm not saying acquit, but I'm not saying guilty either. Like I have a lot of unknowns.
So here's one
Also,
of the biggest reasons. So her back and forth.
So I would have been excused. I would have been excused from the
I'm gonna make it even better for you right now. So they tossed how she waffled, right? Waffled on her
burnt
stuff.
waffles.
That was tossed out by the judge because she was one, didn't have a lawyer at that point when she was being questioned. The second thing, she was under a prescribed level of morphine by her doctor.
WTF.
That's a whole nother.
Right. So you can't cognitively be like representing any kind of reality.
So that was tossed out by the judge, which I would say rightly so. I don't think it necessarily makes her not the murderer, but rightly so.
You can't testify when you're fucking.
So that got tossed out, but that was heavily leaned on by the prosecutors. I don't know. There wasn't talked about. It was between her doctor and her for why she had a morphine prescription. Obviously, there's some issues that needed morphine, but maybe she didn't take that day. Her behavior was erratic, was reported. During the questioning, it was she would answer questions, sometimes only answer questions that benefited her and refuse to answer questions that seemed to not benefit her. She was very aware of those.
Or she's like withdrawing from morphine and
but
irritated.
But that's not what she's saying. That's not what they're saying. They're saying there were specific questions that angled towards her being potentially guilty, and she was very aware of that.
Yeah, but if morphine's in the picture,
she chose. How do you?
If
you say it's morphine, then there should be indiscriminate, like all over the place. But if I could be seen in a certain light here, I'm going to not answer that. And then the ones that viewed her beneficially, she answered clearly. So that's at least what was reported by the police at the time.
But that could be just smart. I mean, she's just intelligent.
Which she is.
I don't want to.
Which she is.
Answer things that you guys are trying.
And she is smart.
On me, and I don't how to say it correctly.
According to the police, she contradicted herself, providing alternative accounts in that morning. So there's all of that was odd. The maid giving the contrary excuse to the prosecutors was viewed as she's initially protected, like you mentioned, and then changed that once she realized the severity of, oh my gosh, she actually might have done this. She then changed her.
She actually might have. I know she did it, and now
right. You know that his shoes were on. Too. Exactly. Right. Okay. So with that, I'm just going to share. So she was acquitted. They said it was too much consequential stuff. They didn't know enough. They said the murder, the hatchet. One of the things, because there was no handle found for the hatchet, even though there was like a break in the thing, but they never found the handle. And they said, oh, that's because she probably burned it to get rid of the evidence. But that's basically saying there's no proof to a jury, right? There's no proof that she did that, but it doesn't exist.
Yeah, she did a good cover up.
So it's just gone. Okay, so with that, in the courtroom, they actually ended up hurting prosecution. I think they thought it was going to help. They brought out the skulls of the mom and dad and set them on the table in front to show the severity of the wounds to the skull breakage, and she passed out. So they viewed that as she's such a Christian, honest woman who would pass out and like have that reaction. So, again, could honestly be, or could be a bit show. Who knows?
Feeling bad, guilty for what she did.
Potentially.
I mean, passing
allegedly
culturally common at that time for women.
Right, but how much of that is also
it was a behavioral thing.
Right.
That was a common
this
part
is
of
too
culture.
Extreme for what I should be seen.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. So they said her inquest testimony was inadmissible because she didn't have a lawyer. She was prescribed on morphine. They said the prussic acid statement was thrown out as well because it was a lot of hearsay about her going to the store. There was no, actual evidence that she did do that. Even though she did say that she went there and bought it for her furs, but again, there was no physical evidence of it. I know she actually bit herself more. I think in a current day trial, a lot of her biting her own ass in the explanations would have came up, but at the time it was brushed off, potentially, allegedly. The hatchet was very clean. How did she clean herself so quickly? Reports of seeing someone else around the house ended up biting them as well, of people working in the home, so there may have been other people present. His estate was worth about $7 million, which to me leans the direction like there's motive potentially there, because she did get money.
I have to pee. I'll be back.
Good. Okay.
And I have a lot of thoughts.
Good. We're gonna do a wrap-up thought. The head fell on the floor. We'll get it later. It's okay.
Fine.
So, the Fall River Historical Society had given money for her to tour Europe, and lawyers did say he had concern for her. Oh, I see that happening. Yeah. Okay.
Save.
And the real last point of the court stuff I want to say, I'm going to say it again before she comes in here, is I really dislike that right before the jury goes in to make their decision that they made after 90 minutes of an all-white male jury, that he says to her, quote, or says to them, quote, consider her Christian character while discussing her fate. To me, a person in position of power who says that to a group of white men about a Christian white female prominently known in your community for helping and aiding people. Also, the victim, her dad just brutally axe murdered, and he's a prominent figure in the community. That's going to have a huge sway on my decision at that time. Mm-hmm. And I dislike it. The judge should not have said that.
No.
Should have been impartial.
Yeah.
But you could already see that the judge made their decision before the jury even did.
I'm trying to sway the jury.
Right. So.
Well, why though? Why do you think the...
Yeah, we've had backlash before, but you can.
I'm like,
hey, here's Sarah. You get a little snippet.
Naomi's gonna be bad.
I know this happened last time.
I'm gonna run.
You should run
before Naomi comes back.
Share your thoughts.
No, I have a question of why do you think the judge was, on Lizzie's side and was trying to convince the jury?
I think because he was the one, again, choosing to dismiss witnesses, dismiss evidence because it was circumstantial, which again, a lot of it is during that time, and the way it was set up, it was so unexpected. She wasn't caught doing it. And nobody would convict her of that unless they were caught doing it. Okay, so hey, the only
thing you're tossing heads.
I didn't toss
think I'm not going to notice that the head tossing.
I didn't toss it, just to be known. I just wanted to say, care for your glasses. The one thing I wanted to say is I still do not like the fact that the judge said right before the jury goes in, just regardless of anything, a judge should be impartial. And the judge saying, consider her Christian character while discussing her fate, quote, before they go in and make a 90-minute decision.
My final thought.
Please do.
And share. I thought about this while I was peeing.
I need to pee too. Think about it more.
I'm a firm believer that we should not judge the past on current knowledge. So trying to put myself in the mindset of those times, the very fact that a female was acquitted speaks to the super lack of evidence, because I think there was anything that would have convicted her, it would have gone for the jugular.
I think it's completely opposite, because she was a woman of a prominent man in the community, and because she was known as a Christian and known as the person that helped people, like she was the epitome at the time of Christian morals. And if she were convicted, what would that mean? Like, to me, it's the opposite. I can see what you're saying too. It could be either, and that's really the point. she was acquitted, which means that legally she did not do it. Legally, right? So I would like to say this is still unsolved to this day. Her new house that she had after this had 4 bathrooms. I just want to say that. After her household had none.
Wasn't there a lot of haunting reports?
So it's very interesting. So yes, the guest house. So this whole house can actually rent it. It's a guest house B&B now. You can actually stay in the room that the stepmom got murdered in, which is terrifying.
Yeah, I've saw a lot of shows.
Yeah, right.
Ghost hunters.
The Fall River Historical Society actually has the hatchet there. Her intestines that were in, like the skin samples that were tested for poison. They have some like just things from the original trial that I think are kind of interesting. The notes, right? The original notes that were written during trial and stuff are there. So that's interesting. So after this, she really was, it's interesting because how the community kind of protected her up to that point really went down the shithole. So she began to be ostracized by the community after this all happened, even after being acquitted. She would get rocks, eggs thrown at her by kids. She really became really left mainstream community. She got just ostracized.
I mean, we see that today. People are not even convicted in the legal system, but media convicts them, and then it's over for them. I mean, talk about cancel culture.
And that's exactly she did I want to say when she passed away, she did have a lot of money go to like a humane society of sorts for pets, and like her, again, money goes to donations and things like it did when it was in her lifetime. No one attended her funeral when she passed away. Nobody. She was buried next to her parents. Her and her sister had a falling out prior and weren't speaking. So she really did have a petering out. She did have a lot of money, and she used that money in ways that she would have prior from what it looked like as well, but she had the money to do it. She bought her own means from that after her parents passed away. So there you go.
Oh.
And yeah, it's been really through folk rhyme, through culture, it has been really built into this thing. I don't think when I first heard of her that I ever knew that she was even acquitted of it. It just sounds like she's an axe murderer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's this perception too. I mean, again,
if you knew she was a murderer, would you do that?
To me, I read enough.
I still would, because I think that she wasn't given an opportunity for change. I mean, we have a lot of murderers that go to prison. They're offered, like, to talk about your last topic, rehabilitation.
Makes sense, right?
And she wasn't offered that. Like, she died being villainized.
She died being a murderer without the conviction. I agree with that.
And she's still vilified in games. Like, it's a fun thing with kids.
Well, I mean, and she died before it became too.
Like, that could be any of us.
Yes.
Or me, especially. If I go on a murderous rampage.
This is where we get into the projection bit with mirrors.
No, this is real.
You have not been axe murdered.
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm not gonna predict the future. I am not.
Me neither.
A fortune teller. I don't not know what the future holds.
So, but again, that rhyme still exists today in a lot of people know it, and people know it from the 18 whatever.
So she's been being convicted over and over and over.
Mm-hmm. And she was back then. But what's interesting to me is what made the shift in her community, because her community was behind her up to a point, and she was acquitted. I know, and she was acquitted by that. But again, this community was completely behind her. She did nothing but help them, and she gets acquitted, and everyone ends up leaving her.
And this is just conjecture. I think she did not behave in the way they expected her to. Maybe they expected her to just jump back into normal life, and maybe she retreated, and they didn't trust that, and they judged that.
Maybe.
Because if I went through all that, I'd be like, fuck all this. Like, I'm just gonna farm some rutabagas.
I still like if this were.
I'm not going on my normal like charity rounds.
What I don't like about this though is like the immigrant who happened to be in town gets instantly found guilty of the axe murder charges where she's already suspected for murdering her own family members, and he gets guilty that same week and she gets acquitted within 90 minutes. But as a white Christian woman, he was found murdered. Yeah, he was found guilty, but he did not get found guilty of these ones because there was no physical way he could have possibly been there. If he could have been with no evidence, I guarantee you they would have stuck that with him.
Yeah.
But that's my problem is, okay, immigrant minority versus Christian white woman, like,
yeah, but I really
who
think
has
her eyes were really
stories.
close together and it didn't conform with traditional ideals of beauty.
But she already was conformed with society.
No, but I think that's why
they loved her.
No, but I think that's part of why it has sustained.
I never saw a picture of her before this.
I did, and that's not the picture that I have grown up with.
What have you grown up with? I'm curious.
It's a different picture where her close eyesight is more pronounced. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay.
So if
the picture of her,
yeah, but that's like probably
is that too kind?
That's
is that her mirror
ego
image?
ideal?
Her ego ideal image. Let me see here.
If you haven't listened to our last podcast, please do so, because we talk about prison pen pals and disturbing shit found on Google Earth.
Is this more of what you're talking about, the close eyesight?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a closer eyesight photo.
Yes, that's
if
the
you would like
picture that I grew up with, seeing that one. Which, they've done studies on what do people think is beautiful, and it's not a close eyesight.
If you go in August to the B&B, they do hold reenactments of the murder if you're, that kind of person.
It's a good field trip.
I don't like reenactments.
I feel like but you could just stay in the room, which that would freak me out.
No, I would do that. I mean, I wouldn't sleep.
Just even being in the house where the murders happen. I mean, you probably had a murder happen in that fucking closet, which is why it's so weird. So it's an old house. They did.
Yeah.
Well, Paul has history with this house from before.
Right. Before
I knew him and I bought this house. So this used to be in the 80s an old punk rock party house.
Oh, cool.
And Paul told me like back in the 80s about by the fireplace that he saw some punk rock chick like piercing her lip with a giant safety pin. Yeah.
Hardcore.
So if you want to financially support our podcast, be our patron on Patreon. It's only $1. You get access to exclusive content. If you want to support our podcast in other ways, give us some positive reviews, because
I like it.
We don't get a lot of reviews overall. Like we get some positive ones, but then we'll get
which is
based on a certain topic, a deluge of negative ones.
Based on how they feel about the topic.
Like I was shocked by after we posted our Brittany Griner podcast, how many negative posts we got. Like I was really shocked
about her and the topic, and it's like that's not really our point and purpose. Is like, again, even with my topic, we're talking about, it's kind of the whole point is pointing fingers in many directions, but it's not about judgment about really any of our topics. We're not.
I deleted all their comments.
Yes,
they were super negative and not constructive at all.
Right, like we care about your opinions, we really do, but
not everybody's opinions.
Not everybody's opinions.
Not the mean ones.
Right. Well,
it's just hate.
There's a difference between hateful and sharing.
And by that, I mean delete.
How this impacts you.
Get your mind out of the gutter, people.
And until next time, watch out for the smoke and mirrors.
And the Doors song was right. People are strange when you're a stranger.
Love that song.
Faces look ugly when you're alone.
Women seem wicked
when you're unwanted.
Streets are uneven when you're down.
When you're strange.
Bye.
People come out of the rain. When you're strange. It's truth. It's truth.